The good old days.
Yeah.
88 days. Yeah, I see a lot of them. I always think of this
Okay, I'll now call the budget workshop meeting to order.
All right, this is pretty much the final, what I'm gonna propose tonight. Hopefully you agree with what you see, and we can put a notice in the paper. First thing, I estimated our average daily attendance at 1,380. You see the numbers: 1,370, 1,384, 1,362, 1,365, 1,364, 1,361, for a final actual ADA of 1,368. I feel like, I feel like our numbers in the first and second 6 weeks are going to be more like what we're going to see this coming up year. So the funding, that's our property tax funding. The legislative at House Bill 3, they put in where it's a 2.5% cap. Anything over that cap, so the deal is our taxes went up approximately right at 19.2%. So this pushed our MCR, which is our maximum compressed tax rate, it pushed our maximum compressed tax rate down to 0.87, so 87 cents. 832 ten thousandths, or whatever you want to call it, 0.872. All right, so that's what our M&O tax rate, that's the maximum it can be. We can't go above that rate. So what the tax rate we're proposing for this year is 0.872 for your M&O and 0.093 for our INS. Now, when you put these numbers into the calculation worksheet, the maximum, so what rate we're asking to put to our taxpayers is 0.965. Now, this was 11 cents last year, so it is a 1.7 penny tax deduction. This was, now all of a sudden I forgot it. On this page, I didn't think I was going to have to look it up, but I do. That was 0.9603 last year. So it is going from 0.9603 down to 0.872. So there's going to be a tax rate deduction. Now, why did this come into play? This came into play because there was a $140 million addition of property value to our tax roll in the form of a pipeline that came through. We all saw it come through and saw it through town. So that pushed our rates down. And our notice tax decrease on our average home in our community. The average size home, we're going to talk about that in the next one. Any questions about this slide before I move on? 2021 to our expenditures. 6,025 as opposed to 6,034. So we're going to spend per pupil a little bit more on the students. Instruction. So, and right now we don't have that one, but it's one of the areas, the instructional portion of our budget. Anybody? School leadership, guidance and counseling, social work services, health services, and our co-curricular, extracurricular. We pretty much try to keep this one per pupil wise close to being the same. So we spend a little bit more on instruction, not quite as much in this area, because and where that came from is our teacher raises that we put in place, and our raises in that sense. That's where that others went up a little on this section. Our central administration. Our statutory require public to influence the outcome of legislation, like with organizations like with TASB and TASA and TASBO and these, a certain portion of their membership dues, they have to report and say, all right, so $4.70 of a $300, $295, I think, dollar membership goes to directly or attempting to direct, how much they spend on lobbyists, more or less. On this one, you're noticing that this one went up a little bit, and what that mainly is from is reclassifying. It's reclassifying salaries. We had somebody that was kind of doing federal programs and human resources last year. Well, now that person is strictly doing human resources, and so that salary went strictly into this area. I'm sorry, are there any questions? I'll go back. The next one is district operations, and that's your plant maintenance operations, your security, data processing, student transportation, and food services. So again, one of this areas, this is one area we kind of did focus on again, trying to make sure that we're able to do one focus is upgrading, all our servers. We're trying to make sure all those things. So when you see, data processing to 175, it doesn't mean you're done. It's an expense that's it's gonna keep going. So we're just trying to make sure we maintain that. And student transportation, that could go back up a little bit. So I had to put a little bit more money into that. Not a lot, but I mean it's $8 per student. Any questions? And then debt service, this is just our debt service payment. It's pretty well, it's in our book. We owe it, we're gonna pay it, and that's what it is. Any questions on this one? This one is, you'll see, this is new construction. It's not maintenance of our existing buildings, it's new construction. Then this is if we would, and we're going to talk about this also in the regular, we've been up just in case we would, and I would have it open, and if we would have to make these payments, I would come to you if we needed to. But now they changed the rules all back to where they were. Last year we would have to make payments. This year they're going to again. Last year they said you couldn't. This year they're saying they could. I guess they're having to make a lot of payments. A lot of school districts have to make hold elections, because you have to hold an election to make a payment to this fund. But now they said we'll let you make it out. CAD cost went up a little bit this year, and to meet that, again, it's one of those things. It didn't probably go up 10,000, but it was close. So I just went and a round number and went up 10,000. Any questions about this one? From the last budget workshop, the changes made from the last budget workshop include certified values were used in the most up-to-date budget. Before I was going off of preliminary values, now I have the certified values in. This is pretty much what we're going to get. Columbus CISD is a formula translation. This estimate is the best estimate all our resources could calculate. Who is the guy who pretty much does the template, he goes, just admit that this is the best guess he got. Formula transition grant is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to wean you down to where this money, you would, it's 2024, 2025, that money's gonna go away. Former transitions grant's gonna go away and you're not gonna have that money anymore. We started off at $600,000 in our former transition grant with the 90% growth. Right now, our former transition grant sits around the $100,000, $9,000. So, that's our best estimate right now. Trying to make sure I calculated this as close as possible. I would have to work in a template that was from release 7 to release 3 to, just different templates trying to get this number right. First, final certified values will aid and determine our voter approval test. The general fund revenues have been calculated using a tax rate of 0.872 and the debt service fund used a 0.093 tax rate. So federal program budgets are set with current entitlements. They're almost all in. I still have 3 that I'm having to put in, but those are federal programs which we don't approve. We just approve 199, 240, which is food service, and 599. The next steps is if we approve the notice in the regular meeting today, we'll publish that in both papers, and then August 23rd, hopefully we're holding a regular meeting or a special meeting to adopt the budget and a tax rate at a public hearing. Any questions? If not, that's the budget workshop, and I'll be explaining some of this again in the next meeting.
Workshop is adjourned.
Okay, so now we're gonna do the invocation, so everybody please stand. Mr. Morrison.
Let's go, Lord, in prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for how you blessed our community. Lord, it's such a joy to raise my children here. It's such a joy to see other families raising their children. Thank you for this school district. I thank you for each of our schools. Thank you for the trustees. Thank you for Mr. Connor. I pray for them as they do their work tonight. Please guide their meeting. Thank you for our teachers and all of the administrators and all that they do. Lord, we thank you also for our children. We pray that this year we get off to a great start. I pray you protect the children, protect the teachers. I pray that you'd also bless them. May they learn diligence and character. And may they endure through tests and all different assignments. Thank you so much for how it's going to build them. Lord, raise up future leaders that will not only lead our community, perhaps even lead our nation, our state. But thank you once again for the opportunity to learn. And so just bless this meeting tonight. Thank you again for these people in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I call this meeting of the Columbia School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, and this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Start out with open forum, public participation this week?
I'm sorry, I do not have.
No? Okay. Sounds good. Moving on to communications and reports, financial reports.
Did you want to go over that?
Go to your, no? Okay. That's a letter A.
So, what we do have for fund balance right now is knowing that we're going to be able to put away $135,000, give or take, for the collaborative classrooms. So we're not going to be able to order the furniture until after September 1. So the safest thing for us to do is to earmark that money for the furniture. So we will put it in the fund balance, earmarked for collaborative classroom furniture. And then after September 1, go through the process. The 11 teachers won, and they'll be announced tomorrow in convocation. So it's gonna be pretty cool. So we're pretty excited. But we can't do it until after September 1, because we would have had to have the furniture delivered before then to be in this year's budget. So we just take it, earmark it, and we'll just
Oh, that one, get it. Okay.
Right.
I'm done my question, but, will that have any kind of negative impact on what we can draw out of our fund balance in the long run? I know there's rules, a certain percentage we can draw over time. Is this gonna cause any effects, negative effects?
I mean, it could, but at 100, because we have 20,000 in next year's budget for it, and then we had 116,000 earmarked for this year's budget that would, it's gonna carry over. So you're looking at 116,000, and you can take out 25% of your total budget when you start, doing the percentage of 116,000 of, roughly 17 million, or not, fund balance, 8.5 million. It's gonna be a small percentage. Could it? Yes. Will it? Most likely not.
Okay.
And then moving on to letter B, information on DED local, Mr. Connor.
So I've noticed, or actually Amber and I noticed, that we offer non-duty leave or non-duty days to both professionals and paraprofessionals. However, and we've been doing it for a very long time, I think probably 20 years. We do not have a policy governing it. So we searched a variety of different ISDs that had policy, and we started to craft our policy. And the area that we were most concerned with was the carryover of days. For someone who is paid hourly, any day, any non-duty day is a day that they have worked. So regardless, we pay them for those days. So if they have X amount of non-duty days accumulated at the end of the year, they get paid those days. But for district personnel, they do not. They carry over and they can build up. So a person on salary, I think this year we got 4 non-duty days.
We had 5, one went to April 18th, so yes, 4.
So what we wanted to do is we really want people to use their non-duty days every year. So we wanted to get it down to a workable number. Otherwise, what happens is somebody can leave, and our policy states that we pay, if somebody retires, Scott, correct me now, if somebody retires from the district, we pay them up to 60 days for their non-used sick leave, right? Local leave. Yeah.
Accumulated sick leave, yeah.
Non-duty days do not roll over into that. So it's just days that they haven't used, that they don't get reimbursed for. So what we want our staff to do is to use the days. So we looked at and we said, well, we just want to create a cap, because it's unfair if people have a lot of non-duty days. That to create a cap, say, hey, once you get to this level, you need to use your days, because at the next year, by the end of next year, the cap is going to stay at 12. And we formed our cap from our current staff, because we looked at how many non-duty days people have, and the worst culprit was me. I have 18, so I'm going to use 6 days. But I will. I'll work less. But what we want to do is just be able to cap it, so people use their time each year. Those non-duty days are designed for them, for time for your family. We want to make sure that they do. We've always had this policy. We've always had these days. We've just never had a policy. So we're not voting on a policy. You're just looking at this now, and I just want the only change was the number of days, and we put it on 12 because as a cabinet, we thought that was the most effective and fairest to everybody that's here. So nobody will lose days, but we want to just cap it to give people some vacations. So that's it for that. Any questions?
All right, sounds good. On to letter C, the facilities assessment. Mr. Kale?
Or I think it's accelerated learning.
Did I miss it?
Yeah. Accelerated learning first. And D is the facility assessment, right? Yeah.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah. So change it up.
That's too bad, I'm sorry. I guess I was guilty of doing this. I was sitting here, one day. Okay, letter C, HB 4545 accelerated learning plan.
So in the last legislative session, a new House bill came about, called House Bill 4545, which has changed the game plan for every school district in the state of Texas. And it became effective as soon as it passed, which was in June. Now, some of the good things that came out of this was that it replaced grade placement committees with accelerated learning committees. So prior to it, if you were a 5th grader or an 8th grader, and you did not pass STAR, we would form a grade placement committee that would look at your grades, meet with your parents, and then accelerate you to either 9th grade or 6th grade. But now, because STAR this year, they take multiple, they used to take multiple tests. Like you would take the 5th grade test and the 8th grade test multiple times in order to pass it, but this year they didn't do that. They only gave the kids one chance. But by that, they changed the grade placement committee to an accelerated learning committee. Now, what this does is it repeals the provision that promoted grades 5th through 8 without the grade placement committee. Because if you didn't pass STAR, you couldn't be promoted unless the grade placement committee agreed to promote you. So instead, what they want, what the legislature wants, is they want students who did not pass STAR to receive accelerated instruction from a plan developed by the Accelerated Learning Committee. Now, will the Accelerated Learning Committee look any different? Really not. It's still parents, kids, and teachers. But what it requires us to do is to establish a process to allow for parents or guardians of any student who had failed STAR to request for district consideration that this student be assigned to a particular classroom teacher in an applicable subject area for the subsequent school year, if more than one classroom teacher is available. And in many cases for us, it doesn't apply. In big districts, it's much more prevalent. So what is accelerated instruction? So anyone who did not pass STAR grades 3 to 8 or end of course assessments, they must have accelerated instruction delivered in the 2021-22 school year or in a subsequent summer. And in that accelerated instruction, you are assigned a classroom teacher who is a certified master, exemplary, or recognized teacher. So if they are assigned a teacher who has any of those credentials, they met the criteria for accelerated instruction. So in Region 3, there is one teacher who meets that need, and it's in Columbus. So we have a person who teaches ELA, Cheryl Edmund Brown, who is a nationally board certified teacher. So at the high school, we have the option of, instead of giving them intensive tutoring, is that we can put children in her class for instruction, and it meets the letter of the law. But there's no other teacher in Region 3 that meets that criteria. So most people have, and in other schools in our district, we look at number 2, which is delivering supplemental instruction before school, after school, or embedded in the school day and meeting House Bill 4545 requirements. Well, our principals will tell you how much fun it was to develop a master schedule and then have this bill come out and they say, everything that we did, we have to scrap and redo, because the problem is and I'll go a little bit more into it, but they wanted the tutoring to happen before school or after school in small groups, or you could do it during the school day. Well, if you did it before school or after school, they said, we'll provide you money for running late buses, which is an option, but it would be difficult for us to run double routes. We would be able to just drop to a site, and we're still planning on doing that. But kids would be required to go to this just like they would in school. So if a child was deemed to go to accelerated instruction and didn't come before school or after school, they're marked absent. And they have to do 30 hours per subject matter, which I'll talk about a little bit more. We all felt that the best way to do this is during school, and to create schedules where we can have breaks in the day where these kids can come in with their individual teachers, go over individual needs for them, and then get the instruction then. I know that it is difficult to spend an 8-hour day at a job or in school and then come back as a child for accelerated instruction. So our thoughts were twofold, is that we thought it worked better for us and for our kids, but it also made it more palatable for them. Accelerated instruction can be delivered in the summer, and if our summer school could have been credited if we would have met their criteria. Here is their criteria. So you have to deliver targeted teach-aligned instruction for the applicable grade level or subject area. Well, we certainly do that. They're provided, in addition to instruction, normally provided to students in the grade level in which they've enrolled. Well, in the summer, that's clear if you do that. But in the school year, what they're saying is that you're going to get, if you are moved to grade 5, but we have to accelerate you from grade 4 instruction, you're still going to get everything in grade 5. But we have to come back and fill those gaps that we saw in grade 4. That's what that says. And it has to be designed to assist the student in achieving satisfactory performance in grade level and subject area on the STAR. But it cannot be scheduled so that the student is removed from really any instruction. So they can't be taken out of the class, they can't be taken out of any enrichment curriculum, which would be like PE, recess, lunch, anything. So what it's caused us to do is to be able to create a period, some time in the day, which we're dedicating just to accelerated instruction for these kids. And the kids that do not need accelerated instruction will have something else that they will do.
How does it work if they have multiple areas that they? Oh,
So,
sorry.
no, it's okay, but it's a great question, because if you fail, you have to get 30 hours for every test that you did not pass. So there are certain grades where you take 4 tests, and you would have to get 30 hours of instruction, with each. Yeah. So it says so what it has to do to qualify is it can be provided for no less than 30 hours total during the summer or subsequent school year, and not less than once per week. Now that may change because there are some 2-day weeks, like Thanksgiving. Not in our case, but in some other school districts. If a student does not pass both math and reading STAR tests, they'll need to meet the 30-hour requirement for each. Excuse me. So we have right now this time limit built in weekly, and if you failed both, you'd be like math on Tuesday, English on, reading on Wednesday, math on Thursday, etc. to make your time up. You have to utilize effective instructional materials designed for supplemental instruction, which we have. They have to be delivered in a one-on-one or a small group environment with no more than 3 students in a small group. That's the one area that has been impossible for school districts to maintain. Because to have one instructor for 3 students, knowing that you have 40 instructors in a school, that means you could only work with 120 students at a given time. So they said, well, you can get retired teachers and other people who come in and who are trained, and they can come in and do that, and you can pay them, and we put money and effort to be able to do that. The problem is we are having trouble filling teaching positions. So it's not easy to get tutorial positions. So with this, you can apply for a waiver. We want to offer this, but the only way any small district in Texas can offer this is either before school or after school, and then compensate our teachers hourly for doing that. And so we're going to ask for a waiver from parents because all the groups we're having small group instruction, but it's just not 1-to-1 or 1-to-3.
Now, there is funding available for this.
There is. Funding's not the problem. The problem is personnel.
Okay.
It's going to be provided by an individual trained in the line material. So essentially what they're saying is it's got to be provided by a certified teacher. All right, so there are some questions. These are the questions that I asked at the recent superintendent meeting. So how are students who did not take STAR in the spring categorized? So we have an influx of students coming from St. Anthony. None of those kids took STAR. They're all very bright kids. State of Texas says you have to accelerate their instruction. So they have to go to these 30-minute classes. Or we can have a beginning of the year assessment where we can test them and determine if in fact they meet the needs and pass. So, I know. So so TEA has it, and then we asked, I said, well, do you have tests? And they don't. But they said, what we recommend you use is the beginning of the year assessments. And that's what we're going to use. So all our 8th graders, we're going to test them in beginning of the year reading, 8th grade reading, and 8th grade math. We have them in an algebraic reasoning class to beef up algebra, because we want them to sit and take the exam in December. Otherwise, their SAT score is going to be their math score. And we, as a district, perform better on STAR. Kids do, because you're measuring just one subject. Whereas SAT is Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And it's a higher benchmark. So we've always had the kids take the test in December, but what we decided we wanted to do is make sure that they receive instruction from us before they take the test. I am thinking that will qualify if need be, but we're going to have them all take beginning of the year instructions, assessments. So there's an LEA, Learning Local Educational Agency. Do they need permission from parents if tutoring will be delivered in a ratio greater than 3-to-1? And the answer is yes. So we are going to send letters, and I think some of us have sent them home, to request parents that, hey, if you want, if 3-to-1 is important to you, then we will do everything we can to make that happen. It just can't happen during the school day. We'll have to do it before school or after school. We all feel that there aren't going to be that many people who feel that because the groups are going to be small. I think our biggest group might be 5 or 6. Right?
Mine are 6.
6. So our groups are, I mean, you're going to have individual instruction. It's just not going to be 3-to-1, it'd be 6-to-1, no. So, and can we choose an online program in place of a tutor? And you can. However, it's specific. They have to meet all the criteria, and it has to be a specific program. So we have, and I'm gonna kudos to your 3 campus principals, because they built these schedules. This came in June. They went on vacation, maybe a week later, and came back to build schedules to get our kids the times that they need to do this, and to develop programs to bring this tutoring to them. Now, It looked different on each campus, and I asked them to come here for this part if you had questions, because they could answer it better than I could, but do y'all have any questions?
So this test, you're taking in December?
So they'll take the regular start in December, but they'll take a beginning of the year assessment the first week. And what we want to do, because it's online, is if they meet just the approaches level, then we can exonerate them from having to take accelerated construction. Spend the time giving them just English 1 and or algebraic reasoning. So.
Okay. Anybody else questions? All right, thank you, sir. I guess that brings us to letter D now.
Yes, Hobbs.
Okay, facilities assessor, Mr. Cahill.
I had Steve Alloway with Huckabee Architects. Steve and myself and a couple of his colleagues, we walked the high school campus, the old part, what I call the 66. We didn't go out to what we did back in 2005. The elementary campus, except for what we built in 2005. And then the junior high, we went to the restrooms and the locker rooms. As far as electrical over there, it was fine. Basically, we looked at the plumbing here, the electrical here, the roof, the elementary, same way. And Steve's gonna talk about what they came up with.
Thank you. Each of you have in front of you a binder. This is what I do. I get excited about this stuff, so I'm ready to start on page 1 and read through every page in here. Are y'all ready? If you want a little bit of an abbreviated, the right button. Yes. We can go through that, but I would be happy to go through anything in here. Absolutely. First, just want to start out with the purpose and charge. And Kenny did walk with us, give us a lot of valuable information on your facilities. We were asked to go to the elementary school, look at plumbing and electrical systems, go to the junior high, look at plumbing systems in the group restrooms and the locker rooms, and then go to the high school and look at the plumbing and electrical systems as well. For those electrical systems, we're looking at electrical switchgear. We did find some obsolete equipment, the use of the electrical rooms, some surge suppression devices. These are really high-level topics that were going on here. Emergency power, recommending emergency generator power for life safety systems and the use of that building in a power outage. Emergency lighting, the placement of emergency lighting and some exit signage. Lighting itself, LED lighting and lighting controls for energy savings and for the age of a lot of the systems that are in place. Continuing on electrical systems, we looked at miscellaneous, the ground fault interceptor for, we did find some electrical outlets that were in some wet areas that did not have that GFCI. Additional convenience receptacles, we found a lot of that around the campuses, to where these campuses were built prior to all the computers that we have today. So in order to do that, you have a few plugs, extension cords, a lot of things plugged in, trying to make that power requirements work for the classroom settings and the offices. We did find some low voltage cabling and equipment that had not been, it had been abandoned but not removed. So there are some items in the facilities that are like that. Fire alarm system, one school was better than the others, but providing voice evacuation fire alarm systems for the facilities, adding smoke and heat detector devices. Most of your facilities don't have a fire sprinkler system, which those are required for today. And I'm going to say, when I say something is required, please don't take that as a fact of we're out of compliance, okay? I'm not saying that at all. When I'm saying required, I'm comparing that to today's code. If we were going to renovate these buildings today, you would be required to bring some of these up to code. But because these facilities are existing, they met code when they were built, okay? So kind of catch me on those sometimes. I'll sometimes use that word required, and I'm not saying everybody leave the building, looking at reviewing the 4G and IP communicator to replace the copper landlines. A lot of times as you'll know, a lot of the AT&T hard landlines are going away for a lot of part. They're going to wireless communication, and that's becoming the norm. Serviceability of the proprietary fire alarm systems. We do have some proprietary fire alarm systems in these buildings that you call one person, one company to work on those, and they're one person. The first responder radio coverage, that is a new code requirement that campuses need to be tested for that first responder radio coverage. Your elementary and junior high probably, and we have not tested these, but just by the size and shape of those, probably in pretty good shape. Your high school, you start getting in some of these interior areas, could be challenged on some of those radio communication for a first responder. The plumbing systems, we're looking at the plumbing fixtures, fire protection system, a fire sprinkler system, gas water heaters, water piping, sanitary sewer, grease waste system, acid waste, stormwater system, and your gas supply system. That's kind of the general overview for the district of some of the areas that we're looking at. I wanted to put this slide in, and this isn't any of the information that you have, but this is not a fully inclusive list of what's not included, okay? But I did want to point out that we were asked to look at plumbing systems and electrical systems. So all the numbers you look at, everything, and not to be confused, the way this document is set up, the first few pages are the elementary school, the junior high, and the high school. After that, you'll see some appendices that are from a program, BIM 360, which is what we use. So when we're in the field, we document a spot in a plan, we take a photograph, we make a note. You'll notice that there's some stuff back in that BIM 360 report, because that is just a raw dump out of that program, that may not be in the cost items. For instance, one I can recall is at the elementary school reception counter. There's some ADA challenges with that reception counter. The countertop's too high, some different things. That's not in the cost, but it is in the report because we noticed it. We said, hey, there's some ADA challenges in this area. So, but we did not do a Texas Accessibility Standard or an American with Disabilities Act review of these campuses. We looked at electrical and plumbing. Site conditions, we didn't look at vehicular paving, sidewalks, drainage, erosion, everything on the exterior, outside in the site. We have not looked at mechanical systems, technology systems, data and fiber, the communication throughout the buildings. We didn't assess the architectural finishes, the ceilings, paint, carpet, doors, casework, the roofing, building envelope, doors and windows, furniture, classroom size. The classroom size, we did not evaluate. Sometimes we'll go into a district and actually do a TEA assessment on that district. What is that classroom size versus a TEA requirement? What is that classroom size depending on the way you're using that campus? Collaborative learning comes into mind when you're looking at the furniture and the movable and everything that goes along with that. How's that classroom? We did not analyze that. Classroom usage, a lot of times it's been my experience that buildings over time get reused for different purposes. So a classroom at one time may have been a science room, well now it's an art room. And that's great, except that now you're using, you're maybe doing clay products. Those clay products are going down the sinks. Those sinks weren't designed with a plaster trap, therefore they're clogging up and different things of that nature. We did see some storage in some mechanical and electrical rooms. Usually when I start analyzing that, a lot of times that is a factor of that storage room that used to be there is now used as a special office of some sort, So we see that on classroom usage, space usage, educational appropriateness. That again is how are you delivering curriculum. So this slide, like I say, it's not all inclusive. I just wanted to kind of point out that what we're looking at is plumbing and electrical, okay? Not to be construed with all the other areas of a facility and of the assessment, which are very important to the use of a facility. So Columbus Elementary School, and I want to mention also Silas O'Brien is our engineer on the project. We did walk this with our with our engineer and look at the projects. So Columbus Elementary, we've kind of color-coded these facilities, and you can probably see those that we do have the original gymnasium, 1947, fine building standing there, and it has an awesome ceiling. I know you've all seen it, but it is really cool. The original classroom building, 1953, had a classroom addition in 1984, the same time as a little kitchen addition. Well, no, I'm sorry. Then we had a cafetorium kitchen addition in 2004, and a kitchen addition in 2004 with the classroom addition in 2004. So those facilities are all over there, combined. And some of the things we saw is the main campus and the gymnasium building, replacing the switchboard, the panel boards, and the transformers. Those have served their purpose. They're aged. You're not finding parts for them. You're not finding replacement parts. If those go out, that building is crippled for a little while until something can be done. Combining 3 electrical service into 1 metered service. That has to do with safety of the building itself for firefighting, that sort of thing, but it also has to do with that monthly charge you're paying on a meter. If you can get all that into 1 meter, you're saving that monthly charge on those individual services to those buildings. Creating space for additional electrical equipment. We are needing to add receptacles throughout the building. That requires more panel space, more electrical room space, more things needed to be there. Providing LED lighting throughout the building. That and energy savings alone will kind of come back to pay for that LED lighting. Removing abandoned equipment and wiring, mentioned that before, the GFCI receptacles. Providing local safety disconnect for equipment appliances. That is a code requirement that we did find some equipment that doesn't have a local disconnect right near it. Providing additional electrical outlets, I mentioned. Remove stored items from electrical and mechanical rooms, and then provide an emergency generator for those life safety systems. Okay, I'm going to find the sweet spot here. On the electrical and security, also confirm that first responder radio coverage, and then add TAS, ADA, voice, and visual fire alarm devices in that building. The plumbing side, we're looking at replacing, or one of the items we noticed is needing to replace galvanized water piping. That galvanized water piping over time doesn't last, and there is a lot of that in the elementary school. Replacing water heaters, investigating underfloor sanitary sewer piping. That was on track to happen, and then we had the big freeze, and the plumbers seemed very, very busy. So the district has filled out the information to get them to look at that. What we do know is that at the high school here, Kenny, how long ago did you replace the piping under the kitchen?
8 years ago.
8 years ago, that piping under the kitchen had completely deteriorated where they had to completely replace that piping. We're suspicious that there's a lot of piping under the school that is in that same shape because it is there is some age to those pipes. They've been used for a while. So investigating that underfloor sanitary sewer, providing fire sprinkler system throughout. That would require also providing a flow test of the water volume of, what is that water pressure and volume to the school itself. And then replacing gas piping with black steel piping with welded fittings and no fittings in the ceiling plenum. So there is some gas piping running throughout the school that does have some of those fittings in that plenum space. So the junior high school, again, we looked at the group restrooms and the locker room areas. And again, you had the original gymnasium in 1967. You had a classroom addition, which kind of becomes the original classroom in 1998. Another classroom addition in 2004 with the locker room addition in 2004. So electrical security, again, LED lighting, remove abandoned equipment wiring, provide GFCI receptacles, local and safety disconnects, providing additional electrical outlets, not as many at that school. Remove stored items from electrical and mechanical rooms, provide emergency generator, surge suppression, first responder radio, and then the fire alarm system on the electrical side. Mainly at this school, we're doing plumbing is what we were asked to do, but we did notice these things and wanted to document those. The plumbing, the flow test on the water system, we do have some fire sprinkler over there. Replace the electrical water heaters, evaluate the underfloor sanitary sewer system. That school is not necessarily needing that with the age of that. The replacing the plumbing fixtures, we did notice this in those group toilets in the locker rooms. Replacing the shower facilities and adding privacy partition for those shower facilities, and then replace the toilet partitions. So those are getting some age on them and needing some work done to them. Columbus High School. Again, you had the original high school in 1965, the ag shop in 1970, portable building back at the back in 1984, classroom in the central office dish in 1998. There was a greenhouse in 99, the Marley Center 2006, along with horticulture, and then a pavilion in 2011. So you can kind of see the growth of that campus over time. And just to go back on that, we primarily looked at the high school and administration wing. We did not go over into the horticulture building or the Marley Center. Those were newer facilities, and we really didn't assess those facilities. So we're looking at replacing a 1960s era electrical system and wiring. I did an assessment here a while back, and I realized that I was putting on there that, wow, we need to replace this school building that was built in 1974. I went, wow, that wasn't very long ago. Then I realized it was over 50 years ago. So I'm showing my age, but that kind of threw me. So when you're looking at a 1960s era electrical system and wiring, it has definitely served its purpose. And again, you're looking at components that cannot be purchased at this time to fix those. Combine 3 of the 4 electrical services into 1 metered service, provide LED lighting, remove abandoned equipment, provide GFIC receptacles, safety disconnects, electrical outlets. This school does need some additional electrical outlets. There's a lot of electrical going on in this school. Remove store items from electrical rooms, surge protection, emergency generator, first responder coverage, new fire alarm system. The plumbing, again, the water test for a fire sprinkler system, provide a main water backflow prevention station, replace some galvanized domestic water piping, confirm the underfloor sanitary sewer piping, provide storm system to pick up the roof downspouts, provide fire sprinkler system, and then replace natural gas piping with a welded black steel system. So that's kind of the overview, and I went through that really quick, and I know you have a really large document in front of you. So I just wanted to kind of give you the highlights of what we saw, what we were looking at, what constitutes this. And with that, you're looking at the elementary school, about $2.6 million to bring those electrical and plumbing systems up, with a campus total of 3.17. And what's the difference in those numbers? That's the 2.6 is a raw subcontractor number. The 3.1 constitutes if that actually turned into a project for permitting and design fees and a general contractor and the other things that go along with actually making a project. So on the left is kind of the raw number. On the right would be a project number that you would need to have to make that project happen. Junior high school, about $800,000, and then Columbus High School, you're looking at about $7.6 million. So we're looking at about $11 million for plumbing and electrical is the way we're assessing it at this point. This is always a living document. There's always things that come out of the closets, other things that maybe become known, but Kenny being a huge resource on this, knows these buildings like the back of his hand, and you can tell from these facilities, I'll be honest, walking through these facilities, there's a lot of them that you can't see with your eyes the age of that facility. Sometimes it's kind of hard to pull back the curtains and look at what's really making this up, you know. A coat of paint can go a long ways sometimes, and new carpet and these sorts of things. So that's a quick overview. I know I've been talking the whole time, and I'd like to open it to any questions that you might have or thoughts.
So the plumbing didn't get done at the elementary campus, the checking of the pipes, or did,
That's correct. No, we've not checked the pipes at the elementary school.
do we have, are we still, is that still gonna happen, or?
That is still going to happen.
Okay.
We're looking in the next, I'm hoping the next couple of weeks that's going to happen. but
Yeah.
Everything's been sent back to them. My suspicion is that the plumbing contractor is a school contractor. As you know, school's getting back in session, so I'm sure he is putting fires out, trying to get buildings open for school. So my anticipation is the next couple of weeks that will be done. And what that's going to entail is actually putting a camera down the lines and scoping out those lines and seeing what that look like. Yes. Okay.
Anything else? I think it goes back fears. Yeah, that's, you know, when you think about it, it's just a plumbing and electrical.
Right.
That's it.
And please know also that we're not contractors. You know, we're not building it, that's not a fee. We try to predict what a contractor would charge to do that. Okay, and we've got a lot of experience doing that, but sometimes, you know, people come back and say, well, what's this, what's that? We're trying to predict what that number is if you hire a contractor to do that work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Yeah. Okay, moving on to number 6, consent agenda. If no one has any questions or doesn't want to pull anything out on the consent agenda, I will need a motion on
Approve the consent agenda as presented.
that. Scott moves. Second. Robert seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Agenda is consented. H, approval of adjunct staff member status and extracurricular resolution. I'm sorry, that's still part of it, I'm sorry. I apologize, it's my fault. Okay, regular action business items. Letter A, discuss possible action to approve the notice of public meetings to discuss budget and proposed tax rate for 2021-2022 school year, and set the date for the public hearing to discuss the 2021-22 budget and proposed tax rate. Mr. Leopold.
This is pretty much what we talked about a while ago. I mean, just going through proposing the notice to set a tax rate at, 0.872 for M&O, 0.093 for INS. This budget that we're proposing is a 1.54% increase. And then that's for maintenance operation. For debt service, it's a 0.4% increase for an overall expenditures of 1.45% increase. Again, I talked a while ago, our total appraised value the preceding tax year was $1,425,881,233. This current year, the final certified values were $1,658,230,993, and that's the reason why the large increase in the tax roll, which reduced our maximum compressed tax rate down. Our bond indebtedness, so what we owe for bonds is $7,532,373.50. So that's where we're at on our bonds right now. Just made a payment today, which will change that, but it's where we're at right now.
How many years are left on that? 5?
Oh, it's more than 5 because It's right at 7, I think. Our local revenue per student was 9,737. Our state revenue per student was 1,587. Our proposed rate this year will be 0.8720 with 0.0930 and 0.965. And this is in your board drive if you want to kind of look at it. And then our local revenue is 10,403, and then our state revenue is 1,222 per student. The next thing it does, it compares the proposed levy with last year's levy on average residents. The average market value of residents last year was $174,609. This year it's $187,543. Average taxable values of residents $149,190, and this year it's $160,680. So with that, taxes due on an average residence $1,596.78, whereas this year it will be $1,550.56 for a decrease in our taxes of an average house of $46.22. Our voter approval tax rate, that means the rate that we can set it at, that we don't have to go to an election, is 0.96509. And so we had to stay below that, so that's where the 0.9650 came in. Fund balances, this is estimating after this year. The fund balance will go down some this year because we're paying for the rest of the softball field. But we're still looking at having right around $8,650,250 in our fund balance, and an interest and sinking fund balance of $1,684,000. Those are estimates right now. Any questions about the notice?
No questions? Nothing in motion?
I move to approve the notice of public meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rate to be published, establishing a proposed total tax rate of 0.965 for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, consisting of 0.872 from maintenance and operations, M&O, and 0.093 for debt service / interest and sinking, INS, and setting the public hearing to discuss budget and proposed tax rate for August 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m.
Scott seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to letter B, discussion and possible action regarding authorizing the superintendent the authority to obligate Columbus ISD under Chapter 49 for the purchase of attendance credit.
Okay, so we gave an option to go online and do it last time. Now we're picking which one we're doing. And this is just like we talked about earlier, all the same, we're giving him the authority to go in and pick that we're gonna net against our state funding. So again, all the templates I've run, we're not gonna owe any recapture. So this is just saying, if we were going to owe recapture, we would like to net it against our state funding. And we're giving Mr. Connor the ability to go ahead and make that online. Any questions?
If none, we'll need a motion.
I move to approve for the 2021-2022 school year, we delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code, TEC 11.1511C4 to the superintendent, solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commission of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This includes approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits or the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits netting Chapter 48 funding.
Scott seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Letter C, discussion of possible action to approve cafeteria prices for adult meals.
All right, we approved for students, and every year, I don't know why they do it, but they bring the adult pricing calculator out late. And one thing that was different this year is we moved, since we're going for the seamless summer option and providing free meals to all our students, we've got to go with the free meal reimbursement rate for the seamless summer option, which is going to push what we were required to charge adults to over $4. And so we're asking to, because the free reimbursement rate is $3.66 and then the USDA rate is 37 cents, and then there's also 2 severe need rates that we have to add in there, which is like 8 cents. And so that pushes us above the $4 mark, so we're just asking for, to set the adult meal prices to $4.25 from $4 from the previous year. Any questions?
Now, do they get the free lunch?
The adults do not. It's just the students.
For the whole year again?
For the whole year again, we're providing free meals to the students for this year.
And to do that, we have to move the adult price accordingly. And it's not us, it's the federal government.
USDA, yes.
that has done that.
Okay, we'll need a motion for that.
Move we approve the adult food prices as presented.
Scott moves.
Second.
Robert seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. D, discussion of possible action regarding approval of an addition to the CISD stipend schedule. Mr. Connor.
So, as you know, we've had incredible difficulty finding an Algebra 1 teacher. And I looked and we've had a stipend put together for science as a hard to staff position. So I met with the math department as well as Mish and talked about developing a stipend for our teachers to teach Algebra 1. So what we're asking for is to add a stipend of $5,000 to hire, to put out there for our Algebra 1 teachers, to get an Algebra 1 teacher in the future. This year, we would like to take that money and split it among the teachers who are teaching Algebra 1, who picked up all the additional, an additional prep, additional workload. So our thought is that maybe a $5,000 stipend will make us more enticing in the future, but I want to reward the people who are sacrificing above and beyond.
So for this year, what you're asking or what we're proposing is to just compensate these teachers for all the extra. But if we find a certified teacher in the future, we would keep that $5,000 stipend for that person.
Absolutely. So if we can hire somebody now, we would give them that.
Now, if you do get someone at Christmas, because
So then we prorate. So it would
Okay.
be 25 that did get a the first semester stipend, and 25 would go to the next one.
which is,
Yeah, and so my question is, what happens when we lose 2 math teachers?
So
So, I mean, are we going to, you know what I mean, it's the position of math teachers that are hard to find, not algebra. Because next year's algebra teacher may be teaching something else. You know, so we lost 2 people, and we can't find a math teacher now. I don't think we posed it as an algebra position, you know what I mean?
Right.
Posed, I think, so the problem really goes out as a hard field position of a math person. You know, like science is all the science teachers that are composite science get $3,000 stipend.
Right.
And so, you know, it's almost a little unfair because for our current teachers who are math certified, well, I didn't, but if we did lose 2 at one time, then, well, hey, you could be the algebra, you get the $5,000 stipend, but you're supposed to be teaching calculus. You know, it's still, that's not going to entice the calculus. You know what I mean? So, I would really like to look at it an overall, at some point, maybe not tonight.
Yeah, no, I think
overall
it
stipend for just a math.
Agreed.
If we're gonna, because this is gonna be a problem, obviously. We don't wanna lose anybody else, but it happens, and we gotta cover it.
And I think in the future, because, we have to look down the road for our core subjects. If this trend continues of having these teacher shortages, we're definitely gonna have to revisit this. And I don't wanna cause controversy with the teachers who work so hard in all the other subjects, but for right now, this is the one that's really being, you know, very difficult for our district, extremely difficult.
Well, this and Spanish too, we've had trouble
There's a
getting.
small stipend for that,
Yeah,
or maybe the same as the science.
yeah.
We do offer that stipend.
But we still have had trouble
Yeah.
even, like, we have a Spanish teacher this year. That was the first new addition to Spanish.
And that being something looked at, that's going to be in all the core, like Dorothy mentioned, we're going to look at significant stipend for to keep these people, entice them to keep.
And not that all the teachers are important, but
But
for right now, this is the most problematic area that we're having.
yeah, we've been a higher
It has to be
manager
addressed.
the last 3 times we've had posted, that's deal with that.
So think that last year we had the same Algebra 1, and I think this is probably the whole thing, we had the same Algebra 1 need. And Matt found a basketball coach who taught Algebra 1, so we lucked into a perfect fit. But since then, and then he left in December, and we've had it posted since December.
Almost a year.
Yeah, and have had no hikes.
And I agree, that the teachers who are stepping up and doing this need to be compensated for their extra.
So-
Absolutely, I agree.
What we look at it is 5 classes, and that way it would be, if somebody has 3 and somebody has 2, we can divvy up the money according to class. Classes is an easier, cleaner. So that's why we chose that.
It needs to be there for sure.
Agreed.
Okay, nothing else? We'll need a motion.
I motion to approve of an Algebra 1 stipend of $5,000.
Scott seconds, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. And that's gonna bring us to closed session. So, the board will now adjourn to executive session as authorized by Texas Open Meetings Act, Government Code, Section 551-.